Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another video where I share with you the different antiques I've purchased and books that I've read within the last X number of months. I guess for this one, we're at spring 2024? Time is flying. I think I'm going to start with the antiques first, and not all of these are technically things that I've bought within the last few months, but I don't think I've shown them on camera before, so I'll do that now and hear what you guys think. I love a good show and tell. Let's start with this beautiful box camera. This is not the same box camera that I recently made a YouTube video about. That one was a number 2 brownie made by Kodak. This was also made by Kodak, but this is the Rainbow Hawkeye number 2 Model C. This was made in the early 1930s, and just like the brownie, this takes size 120 film, which is very easy to find today, and so I'm excited to try it out. If you're a supporter on Patreon, you saw this already and you watched as I cleaned it a little bit. I haven't used it yet still, but I plan to soon. I just got some more film in, and I'm excited to see how the pictures come out on this one versus the other one. Also, it took me a very long time to realize that this box camera that looks black is actually green, but you can't really see it unless you shine a light directly at it. Can you see that? There's like a green sheen. So now I have 2 box cameras, and I'm sure I'll be buying more vintage cameras in general. Next up, we have, let's see if we can make that focus. Just some more hair. I love collecting old hair items, Victorian hair art. This is only the second bit of old hair I've purchased. I showed the first morning hair art in a different video. I can link to it below. It's an interesting connection that it gives you with someone from the past. Like, I'm holding a bit of them here, not in like a weird way. It's fascinating to me. I just like staring at them and thinking. I found this in an antique store. It did not have a backstory, so I have no idea whose head this came from, but it's interesting to wonder about, and it's very aesthetically pleasing to me. Next up, we have this incredible photo of 2 men who look like ghosts because they're completely transparent. How amazing is that? It's like a picture of 2 ghosts. It's not 2 ghosts. This was, you know, a double exposure or a long exposure or whatever, but it looks like 2 ghosts. And in the antique store I found this in, it was labeled as spooky photo, and so I had to buy it. Even if it's not real ghosts, it's still kind of spooky and very atmospheric, and I adore it so much. So cool. Next up is this incredible candle holder. The candle in it was mine, and I lit it for a while. When I blew out the candle, this is what it looked like. And it was so incredible that I've never lit the candle again because I don't want to ruin that effect. It just feels like something, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge would have on his nightstand, and he'd lift it up to be like, "Who's there?" So pretty. This is the last antique. I got it a while ago. This is a candlestick holder with fake spiderwebs that I put on during Halloween, but then I loved the look so much that I kept them on. Can you see the spiderwebs? Right now, it has remote-controlled, battery-powered candles. The batteries are dead right now, but it looks really cool at night. If anyone happens to know what kind of metal this is, it looks like that. And I don't know if that's its natural state or if it's extremely, extremely dirty. And if I clean it with a special solution, it'll turn into beautiful brass or something. So if you happen to know what this is. So next up, we have all the books that I read recently. I will put links to them all below, and I also have a list on my Amazon storefront of all of my favorite books if you want to check that out too. Some of these I liked, some of them I didn't. The genres are mostly a little bit of fiction, but mainly horror and paranormal/occult. This is The Curious World, after all. So let's start with Reunions. Visionary Encounters with Departed Loved Ones. This book is about using a psychomantium to communicate with departed loved ones, so deceased loved ones. A psychomantium is a small, dimly lit room where the sitter sits in front of a mirror, and the mirror is aimed in such a way that the sitter does not see his or herself. And many people have reported having an experience where they encounter their departed loved one. The loved one appears in the mirror, maybe they just hear their voice. They have some sort of experience with that loved one. In the book, Dr. Raymond Moody, unless I missed it, he doesn't really say in this book the mechanism at work, whether he is insinuating that this is actually your departed loved one coming back and communicating with you from the other side, or if it's more, you know, communicating with your subconscious. So these are subconscious projections that, given the right circumstance, you're interacting with it. In the same way that, you know, if you stare in a mirror long enough, you might see something. Sort of like if you're lucid dreaming, you know, you are in control even though it feels like you're not. It's like it's your own brain. There's a lot more to this and also my thoughts on it, and I plan to make a dedicated video actually about this, so I don't want to say everything here. Let's just move on, shall we? The next one in order, The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I had read A Head Full of Ghosts by the same author and I really loved it. I didn't love this. It felt like there was a lot of backstory that was kind of shoved in at random moments and it sort of interrupted the flow of the story. Overall, I found the story interesting, but aspects of the storytelling, maybe not so much. It was fine. Not my favorite though. Next up, more horror. Clive Barker's Books of Blood. I don't love that this says Hulu in big letters right on the front. It's not a sticker that you can remove. I liked this. It wasn't incredible, but I did enjoy it. I think the stories got stronger as they went, like through the book, and I would recommend it. I know it's a classic. Next, I read The Wright Brothers by David McCullough, which I already donated, so I don't have here. I read The Wright Brothers when I was in the Outer Banks because I was going to be making a video about the Wright Brothers National Memorial, which you can find on my channel like 2 videos ago. I thought the book was interesting and informative and in-depth, but I also felt like it was a bit dry in the telling, which is fine. It's just, you know, a non-fiction book. I guess I'm comparing it to 1776, which I really liked, and this one for me was fine. Next, I read Agatha Christie's The Last Seance, Tales of the Supernatural, which is a bunch of short stories. I enjoyed this. I'd recommend it. Very cozy to read. Yeah, quite enjoyable. Next, I read Real Magic by Dean Radin. I don't know where I got the idea to read this. Someone recommended it. The cover is a little... This is a book about like psychic abilities, and I found it to be quite enjoyable to read. That being said, I did not fact check anything. So there are studies done where like statistically shows that someone can have psychic abilities. I'm sure that statisticians out there would read this and be like, what are you talking about? But I didn't do any of that homework, so just taking it at face value, it's very interesting to read, while also knowing there's probably some controversy about the science within. But at the same time, either way, it's still nice to know that there are people out there who are trying to study psychic phenomena, who are interested in that sort of thing, because I find it interesting. I just like when people have curiosity and imagination and aren't afraid to do ridiculous things, as long as it's not hurting anybody. And I want to be psychic, so. Next, I read Atonement. I already donated it, so I don't have it here. I decided to read that book because I love the movie, and the movie is devastating, and so I read the book, and the book was devastating, but it was enjoyable. Next up, this is a weird one. Ask and It Is Given, Learning to Manifest Your Desires. As I've mentioned, I'm curious about everything, and I was curious about manifesting and like what it even is. So I wanted to read it. It was hard to read. Just to give you an example, so this is the opening few sentences. We are called Abraham, and we are speaking to you from the non-physical dimension. Of course, you must understand that you also have come forth from the non-physical dimension, so we are not so different from one another. Your physical world has come forth from the projection of the non-physical. In fact, you and your physical world are extensions of the non-physical source energy. It's a very, very bizarre read, and it was a slog to get through, but I still found it really interesting to learn about new ways of thinking, and this is definitely a new way of thinking. Another weird one. Secret Life, first-hand documented accounts of UFO abductions. I must stress that I am firmly rooted in reality, but I still am interested in all things paranormal and the occult, and I saw this on a bookshelf, and look at that cover. It caught my eye. A lot of this is tough to read because it's people recounting their experiences, and those experiences are quite traumatic. Whether or not you believe they've actually been abducted by aliens or they're having some sort of sleep paralysis or some sort of sleep episode or hypnagogic state, in any case, it's still interesting to read and imagine. Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I, like so many others, love the movie Practical Magic, and so I was excited to read the book, the source material, but I think the story was a little bit different from the movie, and also something about the book didn't really capture the magic I felt from the movie, so I didn't love it. Next, I read The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories. I don't know if this actually counts as a book. It's just a small book of poems by Tim Burton, which I was surprised I hadn't heard of or read up until recently. I thought the poems were cute. I liked the illustrations, but it didn't speak to me on any deeper level. than that. Next, I read Agatha Christie's The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which as far as these books go, these Agatha Christie books that I've read, which is only like 4 or 5, this one I thought was good. I'm always conflicted when it comes to Agatha Christie because it's really an exercise, a brain exercise, where you have to remember all of these different characters, plus all of their movements, plus everything they've ever said to sort of fit together what doesn't fit together, and then at the end you get the answer and then you have to just forget them all again. It's like cramming for a test, basically. You have to cram all of this information in order to get it. And I still, with 0 Agatha Christie books that I've read, I've still never guessed who done it. There were a few times when I suspected this character as being the culprit, no spoilers, but I also suspected others, and so I can't really say that I got it. But again, I think this is one of the better Agatha Christie books that I've read. I've talked about some of the others in previous videos like this. That brings us to the 2 books that I'm in the middle of right now, which are, one is The Discovery of Slowness by Sten Nadolny. One of you recommended this to me actually below one of my previous videos, so I went out and got it. I'm a little over halfway through. So this book is about Sir John Franklin. This book does something strange to my brain. Something about the way that it's written makes it very difficult for me to start reading a new chapter, or whenever I come back to it. It takes so long for my brain to adjust to the structure of each sentence, even though it is just plain English. It sort of feels like merging onto a highway that's going at a different speed than I was going. But after like 5 minutes of reading it, I feel like I'm actually with it and going the same speed and everything is making more sense. And then I'm on this new pace. It's like I adapt to the book. So it's actually taken me a really long time to get through this, and I'm wondering if this is just a me thing, or if this is the result of just being a translation, and by its very nature it's going to be a little different structurally than what I'm used to, or what. But The Discovery of Slowness. And last but not least, we have Le Fanu, Madame Crowell's Ghost and Other Stories, edited by M.R. James. This is a collection of ghost stories by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, born in Dublin in 1814 and died in 1873. I adore ghost stories, full stop, but I adore even more 19th century ghost stories. This is the creme de la creme for me. I hang on every word. I adore it. I love it. And it's edited by M.R. James, who's another incredible horror writer. It just feels like such a gift. It's also taking me a really long time to read this because I love it so much and don't want it to end. I just want to be sitting in an old armchair by a fire in a dark library with the cold wind blowing outside and read these stories. And that is the last one. There you have it, all of my antiques and my books. Again, I have links to all of these in the video description. If you have read any of these books, I would love to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments below so I can read them. And if you have any book recommendations, I love horror, as well as classics, paranormal, and occult, as you've seen. Anything weird, dark, moody, atmospheric, melancholy, just plain good, whatever you like. Let me know. If you want to support the channel, sharing this video, giving it a thumbs up goes a long way. Hitting subscribe if you haven't already. If you want, you can support the channel on Patreon, and that is where I post exclusive vlogs and footage and close-ups of all of my antiques and just everything cool. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.